A SNP in your MTHFR gene is not that important, and here's why. Well, first of all, what is a SNP and what is a gene? In our bodies, the human bodies, we have 23,000 genes. That's a genetic code of who we are. Our genes determine our hair, our skin color, our eye color, how tall we're going to be, and even in some cases, what kind of diseases we're going to get. So genes are important, and what can happen, a SNP happens when, this is a diagram of a DNA, you have these two bases here. A SNP means that these bases just change places. That's what it means. Now, the significance of that in your body is that when you have a SNP, the SNP, in the case of the MTHFR gene, again, one of 23,000, but if that gene is SNPed, it means that you can possibly have problems in your methylation cycle. Let me back up for a second, too. You get your genes from both your parents, your mother and your father. You get a set from your mother and a set from your father. So if you have for example, your father has a SNP in the MTHFR and your mother doesn't, then you have this one side SNP, right? If your father and mother both have the SNPs, then it's a full SNP and you have a more reduction in the way the MTHFR gene works. In other words, the methylation cycle, which is really important, I'm going to tell you about it. Hang in there. This is going to get really good, and you're going to understand a lot of things. The methylation cycle is very important, but if you have a SNP, if you have the changes in your DNA base from the genes, in the MTHFR gene specifically, that slows down the methylation cycle by 65%. The importance of the methylation cycle, it's very important for your brain chemicals, for your hormones, for your detox pathway, and for making DNA. The most important thing that your methylation cycle does, it actually helps to make creatine. It makes 60% of the methylation cycle makes creatine. What is creatine? That's a nutrient for your muscle energy. So we need a good methylation cycle. And yes, the MTHFR gene is part of that. It's not the only part, though. So stay with me here. So the creatine is 60%. Making your cell membranes is another 20% of what the methylation cycle does. So it's an important cycle, right? So again, we have creatine production, muscle energy. We have cell membranes, which just protects the cell. We have brain chemicals like your serotonin and your epinephrine and your feel-good chemicals, things that make you feel healthy and happy. If we don't have a good methylation cycle, our brain chemicals falter and we have things like depression and anxiety. Your hormones, your female hormones, your male hormones also come from the methylation cycle. And so do your detox pathway. In other words, the way your body's liver detoxes different chemicals and toxins from your body has to do with the methylation cycle working correctly. And then again, making your DNA. The DNA is the big deal because if you have a SNP in your MTHFR gene and you are low in folate and B12 and B6, if you're a female and you want to get pregnant, or if you've been pregnant and you lost the pregnancy, it may have a lot to do with the folate, B12, and B6 deficiency because it slows down the methylation cycle. So the consequence, again, for pregnancy and a SNP in your MTHFR gene is that you're not going to be able to make your DNA. And when you're pregnant, your cells are dividing, and the baby's cells are dividing, and it's making more DNA, and it's making more cells. But if your body is deficient in these nutrients or the methylation cycle is slowed down, it can't complete the cell cycle. What does that mean? That means that a woman who has deficiencies of folate, B12, and B6 during pregnancy, it has a 65% chance of having birth defects in their children, and we don't want that. So please pay attention. So where do we get folate from? Folate comes from the Latin word foliage, which means green. What is green? Greens are the vegetables that you eat. So when you eat green vegetables, you get a good source of folate. Same thing with B12. B12 comes from vegetables. But B12 is also made in your digestive system, in your microbiome, in the probiotics. My wife and I do a digestion correction workshop where we go through all the problems related to a poor functioning digestive system, and birth defects are definitely up there too as one of the big ones. But we need to have a good functioning MTHFR gene. We need to have good folate, B12, B6. So if you've been to a naturopathic doctor or somebody, you had your genes tested and you looked it up and it said, oh yes, in order for your methylation cycle to work, you need these 3 B vitamins. Yes, that's it. But that's only part of the picture. And this is why I said the MTHFR is not that important. The methylation cycle is super important, but what's also important is that we have to have a single carbon pool to be able to feed the methylation cycle. Single carbon, so where do we get the carbons to make this single carbon pool to feed the methylation cycle? We get them from these amino acids: serine, histidine, glycine, glutamine, and tryptophan. These, guess what? They're amino acids that come from protein. So if you're not eating enough protein, or more importantly, if you have a poor functioning digestive system and you're not digesting your protein, you're not going to be able to break the protein down to release these amino acids. You're not going to feed your single carbon pool. You're not going to make your methylation cycle. It's going to be very sluggish, and you're going to have problems in all these areas, okay? So this is the another side of the equation that most doctors don't understand. But we need to make sure we have this. So let's say, for example, you found out that you had an MTHFR SNP in both sides of your parents, and you have the gene, the SNP, and you're eating good stuff, and you're taking B vitamins, but you don't see any improvement in some of your symptoms, like maybe your brain chemicals are off, you have anxiety or depression, maybe your hormones are out of whack, your detox pathways are not working well, and your DNA is not working well. It may be you got to look at the other side of the equation and see if you're having enough of these amino acids. So when a person is not absorbing their protein, what we typically give them is, they're called proteases. Proteases are enzymes that specifically digest protein. And your pancreas makes them, but you can also get proteases and protein digesting substances from natural foods. Things like pineapple and papayas are really good sources of these protease enzymes that help to break down these proteins into these individual amino acids. Did you know that tryptophan is the most important and the most abundant amino acid in your entire body? Every single process in your body uses tryptophan to function. The only thing is it's not found in collagen, but it's found in every other place of your body. So without enough tryptophan, we can't make our brain chemicals, we can't make our muscles, we can't make anything about tryptophan. It's a very important amino acid. As a matter of fact, there's a journal that's just on tryptophan. The whole journal comes out every couple times a year, and all I talk about is the importance of tryptophan, how important it is. Anyway, going back to this. So we know that if you have a SNP in your MTHFR gene, you need to make sure you get more of these, it's true, by eating those good foods, right? And folate is very important, and not to use folic acid. Folic acid is called the oxidized form of folate. Folate is a reduced form. We want the reduced form of folate, which is folate, because that's important for the methylation cycle, okay? So again, these are really important. Again, you make your B12 with your good bacteria. You got to have a good functioning gut. You got to eat a lot of fiber and a lot of good nutrients. You got to take probiotics to feed your microbiome, your probiotics, to make sure you can make B12 from there. It's really, really important. Okay, next thing is that when we have all these things functioning correctly, we're going to be able to help these particular imbalances. So again, a lot of people, say they have a SNP in their genes and they found out, but they just do part of the picture. So this is the other half of the picture, okay? This is Dr. Aaron Chadwick, part of Your Nutrition Physicians. If you have any comments, please put them down below. If you want to DM me, just do that too. But we do a digestion correction workshop every couple of months. So follow us on YouTube and on Facebook and Instagram. YouTube, we're Your Nutrition Physicians. And you can like us and follow us and share this video with all of your friends and family, okay? God bless you guys. We'll see you next time. Stay healthy.